So the presentation today is going to be split into sort of two parts. The first part is on assistive technology in general. And then the last part will be focusing specifically on apps for communication. And all of this is going to be a pretty broad overview because you'll get a lot more detail on these in later presentations and trainings. Let's go over a definition of assistive technology. At the top we have a very official sounding definition that is used in the law that makes special education possible. But it's not the easiest to understand for everybody, so below I have sort of a translation. Basically AT, and I'm going to use AT instead of saying assistive technology every time because it's easier. But it's any piece of equipment or technology that helps someone with a disability do something that they need or want to do. There's assistive technology to help with life skills, like organization, behavior, sensory needs and regulations. There's assistive technology to help for school, reading, writing, other school subjects. So I'm going to go through some examples. Many of these you've probably already heard of, but it's okay. And with most of these, there will be links to other resources if you want to learn more. The way I see it, it's almost like babbling, like really young kids learning to speak, they'll just babble sounds. And when that happens, it can be really tempting to be like, okay, you're being annoying with this, I'm taking it away. And in the real world, especially if you're somewhere where it needs to be quiet, that can be the best solution. But another thing you can do is treat them like any other kid who's speaking, who's just saying something over and over and they won't be quiet. What would you say to that kid? Would you wrap something around their mouth so they can't talk? Because that's what taking this away is. Say, it's not time to talk right now, let's be quiet. Might work, might not. But that definitely happens, and I think that sort of just pushing words and hearing them repetitively is part of the learning process and learning what this is and how to use it. And so if you can handle it, it's good to let them do that sometimes, not all the time. So a child, when they learn to speak with something like this, or learn to communicate, might say, I want to go to the park. But it might be raining out, so you can't. And so she was asking, do you always have to follow through with what they say while they're learning this? Is that kind of what you So, yeah, that can be difficult. So, as much as realistically possible, it is good to have them get what they ask for, but they're a kid. Like any other kid who asks for something that it's not time for, it's not time to go to the park or at school. Or, I can't give you ice cream because we don't have any in the house right now. Is that you acknowledge that you understand what they said. Say, I know you want that. We can't do it now because it's raining. We can't go to the park right now because it's raining. But then maybe say, we can try this weekend. If it's not raining. I feel like you don't need to turn your whole life around to constantly do what they're asking for, but acknowledging what they say. Be like, hey, good job telling me what you want, that's awesome, but here's why we can't do it right now. And especially early when they're first learning, it really does help them learn if they can actually get what they're asking for a lot of the time, and if they can get it kind of quickly, that helps them learn it better. But then you can kind of fade that away a little bit into something a little more realistic, because we don't always get what we ask for, right? So let's say they want to go to the park. Tell them, no, we can't go today. Because I'm going to try to find weather. Yeah, because it's raining. And if you can find the word rain. And that will help them learn that vocabulary just by seeing you use it. Well, that's true. And I've actually kind of seen the opposite for some kids. It depends on the kid. Sometimes if they're so upset, they're so distracted by being angry that they can't think of the words that they want to say. And so something like this might be easier because it has the words right there. You can look for what you want. And so it depends on the kid.
But I think also, too, the iPad will help channel that. You know what I'm saying? So when he is angry like that and he is forming those sentences and you understand what he's saying, the iPad would be of no use. But it's in those moments, like you said, where he's relaxed or he's unfocused and you want him to have a conversation with you or you want to talk about what's going to be happening next, that's when the iPad would be a great tool for you. And vice versa, you know, it is those moments where your son is just getting so flustered, he's so angry, but he's not saying anything. It's like, okay, let's turn to the iPad. Let's get the iPad out and let's work on it together.
In my experience, it's better to give the kid a program that you think is a little too difficult or a little too complicated and help them grow up to that. The only other choice is to give them something that's very simple, but then they just stay there and they're limited at that level. This is another app called Touch That with Word Power. The one on the left looks very similar to Proloquo. The one on the right looks very similar to the basic setting in Proloquo. Talk Tablet is another one. They start to look very similar to each other. One good thing about this one is that it's relatively cheap. It's only about, I think, $80, which is, I think, the cheapest one on the market right now. And this one is also available on Android apps, so like a Kindle, so not just iPads. That's nice. This is another one that's a little less expensive. It's only about $100. Only. But it's also available for Android apps, or Android tablets. This is one made by a company that used to make communication devices that just had the app and nothing else. And one thing I like about it is that it not just has like the grid with the buttons like we've seen before, but it has something called visual scenes, which is on the right, where it has a picture of a location, a place, like a grocery store. And if you touch certain parts of the picture, it will say the word of what you're touching in the big photograph. This is another one. It's a little different than a lot of the other apps we've seen. It looks really, really complicated on the left. But it allows you to temporarily hide some buttons while the kid focuses on learning a first word, just a few words at first. Which is a good way to sort of, like we were talking about, introduce something to them that is at about the level they're at so it won't be too hard. But then as they're ready to learn more, you unhide more words, and they'll all be in the same place. Nothing moves or shifts around.
The assistive technology team in Seattle prefer Proloquo to Go over, it's not the cheapest, it's actually the most expensive. They prefer it because they say that it's the most dependable app and it's the one that they have seen more growth. This is their own personal preference. Again, they are open to suggestions, and if you come with the app that you think is best for your child, and you say, well, I learned about this app with the iPad project. What can you provide this one for me? Can you provide this one for me? Will you use this in school? They don't have a choice. They have to. It's for your IEP. They don't have a choice. Yeah. So it's up to you, and if you come with that.
So one of the hardest things about AAC is how do we help the kids learn to use it well? For most kids, if you have this, you hand it to them, they're probably not going to start using complete sentences by themselves the first time they see it. So the best way for kids to learn AAC is through something called aided language input. I'll explain that. So when kids who are typically developing learn language, they learn it by hearing other people speak around them during activities that are meaningful to them. And so the idea with aided language input is that as you and other people talk to your child, they will both speak and use the communication app at the same time as they talk to the child. So it's almost like you're trying to create an immersion environment for your child where they see this being used by other people and they can connect the words they see being used to what's happening right now in their life.
Okay, fine. So in my case, the problem that we have with my son is ADHD and autistic.
Yeah.
So getting that focus right takes time. So pretty much it's all about patience. I mean, if you give him the device, the first thing he's going to try and find is where do I get my shoulders? I mean, for him, it's all about getting his shoulders. He won't care about all the other learning aspects of it. So that's the challenge, pretty much. That we keep on take it back from him and tell him, no, this is what I want you to do. So getting that focus is what the challenge will be, pretty much.
Yeah, that's a common problem with, or a common challenge with iPads, is that if the child learns to associate it with games or things to do for fun, it can be hard to have them learn that it has other purposes.
She wants to share that she has her kid in the spectrum and the same that your kid, he has ADHD, and it's really hard to focus in one thing.
Yes.
He likes that iPad just for games, and she's thinking how she's gonna work with him to teach him how to communicate through the iPad.
Yes. And that is a challenge. There are a couple different strategies that you can use. I can talk about them really briefly now, but if we have time at the end, we can go into more depth with them if you would like. In my experience, the best solution, but it isn't always the most practical thing, is to have one iPad or device that's for fun, and then the one for communication has no games, nothing for fun on it, just communication. But we're not all made of money. We can't all afford to buy 2 separate iPads for that.
Keep the academic, and you can close the internet and all the games.
Guided access.
That was going to be the other thing I was going to talk
about. That's what I was trying to figure out. Like, how do I switch from this mode to this mode?
We'll teach you.
It's fine for them to know that you can use these devices for games and for fun, but it can be difficult for them to understand that it's difficult for communicating to be motivating when they feel like they have to pick either fun or communicating. Yeah, and when it's all on one device, that's kind of what you're setting up. They're like, either you can have fun or you can talk. And we want them to be able to do both at the same time. In a perfect world.
So this is Provail. We are a non-profit. We don't sell any equipment, but we help match people to the most appropriate equipment. These are pictures of some of the people we work with. Our mission has been to support people with disabilities, and we have been around for 65 years. We're in North Seattle. I think our goals, our vision is very similar to what each of you want for your own families, is to have the most access for people and include them in the community. We have broken our programs into 3 different areas. Our therapy clinic does a lot of wheelchairs and communication devices, adapted iPad, adapted computers. And part of that is assistive technology. Our second group is employment. So we have people, job coaches, that help people find employment. We also have a fabrication division that makes parts. So people there are employed at our fabrication department. We also have a community living program. So we have houses that are staffed 24 hours a day. So people can move out of their home and live with other residents and still have the support they need. Art is Not an Option is an art, poetry, and dance program that we have at ProBell. And Seattle Brainworks is a program for people who have head injury. So this one is the ProBell brochure, and inside, this is the assistive technology such as iPad, telephones, computer. Again, we don't sell that, but we can help match people to what might be the best for them. I think I really appreciate Open Doors because I think they speak to this slide that change requires us together as a community. So we have an occupational therapist who has 16 years working with assistive technology, and she has a son who uses assistive technology too. We have 2 assistive technologists, each with over 20 years of experience. I'm one of them. We have 2 speech language pathologists, and combined they have 15 years with assistive technology. And our front office staff is very good about answering questions. We have a very vibrant clinic. We have lots of noise in the lobby. And we also have rooms that are very quiet if some of our clients need a quiet room. This one has pictures. So Frankie pushes a picture of his grandma and it dials his grandma. And then over here in the corner, he has a communication device that speaks out loud. We do work with people with iPads and tablets doing communication. Today we're going to look at the iPad with talking on a telephone. And you might think that that's a little different, but a conversation you might have over a telephone is similar to a conversation we might have together in this room. But on the telephone, you can't see people's facial expressions. And sometimes the people we work with don't really understand the facial expressions of the other people. So I think it works really well. We're going to talk about stories on the iPad, such as books, and then social stories. We'll look at the apps that typically come on your iPad. So right now your iPad might look like this. Settings is something probably important for you guys. Well, this one doesn't have it. The other important one is the camera, because it's great to take photos so your kids can see exactly what you're talking about, or you can relay messages that way. This is a basic calendar. I don't know whose kids might want to use that. These are the photos. Getting onto the internet, getting into email, and by getting into the apps that you want to put into your iPad. So the telephone calls and the iPad. This is one of the speakerphones that is available through a program. That's this brochure. So if anybody has a speech impairment or a hearing impairment, they could get a speakerphone like that. It works on a landline. But lots of people have, who here has cell phones? Anybody has cell phones? So mostly the cell phones has an option to put it on speakerphone. Then you can use your cell phone, your iPad, and make telephone calls too. In this program, people have to be 4 years and older. The evaluation and the training is paid for by this program. And the training can include programming your iPad for the telephone conversations. So it's a really good program. It usually doesn't cost people money, but you get at least like 8 or 10 sessions where I can come and I can help you program the device. I could show you how to program your communication app. Some people like other kind of phones and other communication devices. Some people need to use a switch like that. I don't know, does anybody here, their kids use a switch like that for anything? No, okay. I think it'd be hard for them to swipe the iPad if they had to use that. So I want to talk about telephone use and trying to break it up into 3 kind of groups of what do you say on a telephone, which is also what you say when you meet people. So if you can practice on the telephone or you can get this onto your iPad, then you can practice when we're standing next to each other or when we're on the phone. So first we usually start out with greetings. Hi, it's Andrea, how are you? And then I know what you're gonna say next. So if I say to you, hi, it's Andrea, how are you? I know he's gonna say, I'm fine, or I'm not doing so fine. Then I know that I can say, I'm doing fine. So already I have 2 things I know I can say. I don't have to try to process what is he asking for me. If I say, hi, it's Andrea, and then he says, oh, what are you doing here today? Where did you go today? How was school? Now I'm going, oh, all these things I have to answer. But if I can say these things, I know what's next, and I can be very successful. And then the next thing I want to kind of say is, maybe I'm talking to you and I want to tell you, I want to talk to you about something. There's really something that's important to me. And then I can go into what I want to tell you next. I am so excited I have an iPad. I am so excited that it's sunny outside. I went on a field trip with school. I'm just calling to see how you are doing. So this works really well with grandmas, and it also works well if you're talking to 7-year-olds. And so you can put that on it, and your child could tell them, I'm just calling to see how you are doing. Then grandma or uncle or cousin can say, oh, I've been out in the garden. Oh, I've been watching TV. I went shopping. So then it gives the other person the chance to really talk. And again, I can just rest. I can just think. It may be very important for the other person, for grandma or uncle, to be able to talk to me. It may not be as important for me to talk to them. But we're trying to build those social connections, and we're trying to reinforce those opportunities to have those social connections and for communicating. So the second part of a telephone conversation or a conversation we have is kind of the subject of the conversation. I went on a field trip. Do you want to hear how it went? Or I've been learning my iPad. Can I tell you what I do with it? I went to school. Do you know what I did? So after we have that part of the conversation, here's a couple things. We went to the park. I went down the slide. So just continuing the conversation. So one of the things is that if you can get them, if we can program this in and they can start hearing it, it's similar to maybe what 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds say.